Howdy, 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 my name's Anachi Sasuke. Welcome back to Let's Read the SP Foundation Wiki. In the last episode, we read from Mobile Veins up through a nexus of abandoned places. So we're going to start this episode with a satellite. Let's go. Well, it's in orbit. Methods of containing 471 are currently being investigated. Primary goal of containment is to block the non-terrestrial transmissions emanating from it, with a secondary goal of acquiring and studying it. Observation probe Delta 2 is currently in an elliptical orbit around Earth that allows it to regularly intersect the signal emanating from 471. It is responsible for observing and reporting this signal each time it intersects. Delta 2 also possesses boosters capable of keeping it within the signal for extended periods of time for the purpose of testing or to monitor a significant deviation in 471's signal. So, SCP-471 is an artificial satellite currently in an elliptical orbit around Earth. It appears to be identical to satellite Blankety Blank, a weather satellite launched by Redacted in 1970-something. Though it superficially resembles that satellite, additional equipment of unknown purpose can be seen on its backside. Photographs and manufacturer reports have confirmed that the satellite was not present at the launch of satellite Blank. It is unknown whether satellite Blank was altered after launch or replaced entirely sometime later. 471 has continued transmitting the same weather information satellite Blah was responsible for, which has allowed it to go undetected for decades. SCP-471 was first discovered by the Space Shuttle Discovery during a routine maintenance mission to Redacted. An anomalous signal was detected being transmitted away from Earth, which was traced back to SCP-471. Once Foundation agents within NASA had identified the satellite was in fact an SCP object, the Foundation took over the investigation and released a cover story indicating that NASA had detected a top-secret military research project. Since its discovery, 471 has transmitted constantly, looping every blank minutes. Only one interruption in the signal has been recorded, see testing log 471-931. The signal was stronger than any the Foundation or any other Earth agency is capable of producing, and all attempts to block it have met with failure. As well, the signal is clearly directed. It is only detectable within a narrow cone, radius to height ratio 0.0013, originating at 471. The target of the signal appears to be fixed on Jupiter. See Addendum 1. The contents of the transmission are heavily encrypted and appear to be raw static when observed directly. Were it not for the strength of the signal, NASA would have assumed it was random static generated by the Earth's electromagnetic field. Over time, the signal has evolved, with sections of it changing since its initial discovery. A Foundation supercomputer, Bomb-2, was tasked with cracking the encryption and determining the contents of the signal. After running continuously for blank days, Bomb-2 was able to decrypt a small portion of it, which appeared as a series of binary values. While most of the values' purposes remain unknown, several of them were identified to correspond precisely with discrete values related to Earth, including the current global population, the total number of births and deaths that occurred during one complete orbit of 471 around the Earth, the Fibonacci sequence up to 75,025, number of artificial satellites currently in orbit around Earth, final scores of several American baseball games, combined total of nuclear weapons and nuclear power plants on Earth and in satellites, and the poll results for the 2000 blank Oklahoma senatorial election. Blank hours after successfully decrypting this portion of the code, Bomb-2 suffered an apparent electronics malfunction. Investigation revealed that Bomb-2 had suffered damage consistent with that of an EMP. However, no other electronics in the area had similar effects. The Foundation created a new computer, Bomb-3, to pick up where Bomb-2 left off. Blank hours after beginning its analysis, however, Bomb-3 suffered identical damage to Bomb-2, despite being hardened against an EMP. Whether this was a result of a direct attack or a consequence of the contents of the signal has not yet been determined. The method by which 471 gathers data is currently unknown and is under investigation. Currently, 3 probes have been launched towards 471 in the hopes of examining it more closely. See the testing log for details. Addendum 1. While attempting to glean the purpose of the integer values identified by Bomb-2, the Foundation discovered a copy of the signal transmitted by 471, much weaker and with an 88-minute delay being transmitted back at Earth. Investigation revealed that 471 was transmitting its signal in such a way that it was amplified by the magnetosphere of Jupiter and broadcast in all directions. The copy signal evaded detection because it blended in with the background static naturally produced by Jupiter. So what's a testing log? It's not that bad. For the length of each test observation, probe Delta 2 remained with the transmission cone so as to observe any changes in the signal. January the something 2000 something, a redacted model probe was launched towards 471. It was to use a passive scanning system in order to more closely examine 471, in the hope of better understanding its purpose and technology present. 19 minutes after activating, however, the probe experienced an electrical malfunction, causing its thrusters to misfire. It subsequently fell into a decaying orbit and was lost upon re-entry. February the something 2000 something. A second redacted model probe was launched in an identical path to the first and experienced an identical malfunction at approximately the same distance from 471. It is theorized that 471 possesses a defense mechanism to redirect any artificial objects approaching it, as the probability of the malfunctions being coincidental is effectively zero. April the something of 2000 something. A redacted model probe was launched towards 471. It was equipped with specialized systems in order to make it more difficult to detect and more resilient to any malicious software infiltration attempts. The probe was launched in a path that brought it within 500 kilometers of 471, but not directly towards it, at which point the probe was to turn and head directly towards 471. This appeared initially successful, however once it came within 300 kilometers of 471, data expunged, resulting in the complete destruction of the probe and corruption of redacted database. Additionally, at the time of the incident, the signal emanating from 471 changed. The encrypted signal ceased, and instead a series of 23 phonemes began repeating. The meaning behind the altered signal is unclear and remains under investigation. The changed signal persisted for 13 minutes before reverting to the usual encrypted signal. Following this incident, by order of 05 blank, no Foundation vessels may attempt contact with 471 until a method is discovered of approaching it without causing data expunged. Well, that's strange. So next up is the Bloodstone, which went from safe to anomalous to Euclid. It kind of looks like the Philosopher's Stone from the first Harry Potter movie, except slightly cleaner. SCP-472 was to be kept in the center of an empty locked cell measuring 37 by 37 meters. All personnel wishing to enter for research purposes must undergo a psychological evaluation and submit a research request before being permitted entry. Personnel should not remain within 18 meters of the stone for more than 5 minutes without being directly monitored by security personnel. Update 1. No personnel exposed to 472 through Stage 6 of its effects may be allowed more than 4 consecutive minutes of further exposure without direct approval of Site command. Update 2. Once every 60 days, one disposable dude must be exposed to 472 for a period of between 10 and 27 minutes. Update 3. Due to biomass loss, no personnel may be exposed to 472 more than once in a 48-hour period without explicit approval from Dr. A. Jones. Description. 472 is a red garnet of the Pyropes spessartite variety of unusual size, 1.8 carats. The phrase, "For man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart," has been engraved in 2 mm high lettering on the stone surface. Relevance of the phrase is unknown. When any organism possessing a heartbeat passes within 60-foot radius of 472, the subject will begin to hear the distant beating of a heart within their head. The heartbeat heard directly corresponds with the subject's own heartbeat, with the frequency of the palpitations increasing or decreasing with the pulse of the subject. Prolonged exposure causes a variety of additional psychological effects. Stage 1. 5 to 7 minutes, low feelings of unease and anxiety. They cease immediately upon vacating the area. 6 to 21 minutes. Gradually increasing feelings of anxiety and paranoia. Decrease on the vacating the area and cease within 5 minutes. 18 to 27 minutes, high level feelings of anxiety and paranoia. Begins to hallucinate, reporting seeing the world around them tinged with red and hearing vague whispering noises. 27% of subjects also report strong feelings of guilt. Effects decrease within 20 minutes of vacating area and cease within 60 minutes. Stage 4. Onset 34 to 59 minutes. Previous symptoms increase. Hallucinations become more vivid and visual. Frequent hallucinations include rivulets of blood trailing down the walls, images of dead bodies, thumping, screaming, and ambulatory corpse-like figures. 65% of subjects rendered mentally incapable of leaving the influence of 472. Effects decrease within 60 minutes of vacating the area and cease within 3 hours. Stage 5. Onset 55 to 69 minutes. I just felt my room shake. It's probably my fridge. Previous symptoms increase. 100% of subjects rendered mentally incapable of leaving the influence of 472. 38% of subjects exposed entered a state of catatonia. The state has a 76% fatality rate if subjects are not removed from the area of influence. Effects decrease within 6 hours of vacating and cease within a day. Stage 6, onset of 361 to 723 minutes. Surviving subjects now capable of leaving the influence of 472, though many do not realize this unless prompted. Previous symptoms vary in degree of intensity and become sporadic, alternating with periods of lucidity indefinitely until subject leaves or is removed from the area. Effects cease within 24 hours of vacating the area. 472 was recovered from the mansion residence of Redacted, a wealthy man living in Redacted. Foundation investigators were alerted by local reports of hauntings by domestic staff after Redacted was hospitalized by a fall. Mobile Task Force Delta 5 Frontrunners was assigned to investigate due to possible connection to ongoing projects. Investigation narrowed down to the origin of the anomalous effects to 472, which had been prominently displayed in Redacted's jewel collection. Origin of 472 was under investigation. Used to say, does not appear to have any other anomalous effects, harmful or otherwise. Object tentatively classified as safe pending testing, potentially downgrade to anomalous. See addenda. First we're going to see this. 472 was located via reports from the so-called anomalous community from interfacing with Mobile Task Force Sigma, bibliographers. And that goes to a story called Another Goddamn Magic System. Let me open that. Initial theories from anomalous community sources categorize 472 as a seal containing an entity responsible for the anomalous effects. However, further analysis had not supported this, rather indicating that 472's appearance as a red garnet may be due to a fundamental perception error of unknown nature. Sources have not been able to confirm anything substantial about the origin or nature of 472. Let's put that away. Addendum 45, effects of the subsequent exposure. Subjects previously exposed to its effects experience a cumulative 10 to 20% increase in the speed of onset of certain effects with each additional exposure. Eventually, subjects will immediately begin experiencing symptoms at stage 2 levels, with stage 3 occurring within 5 to 10 minutes. Stage 4 to 5 then occurs normal, time of onset of 6 is not affected, and continues to occur at no earlier than 361 minutes after initial exposure. Hallucinations begin to differ in nature when the subject is exposed to it more than 1 to 5 times. Subject reports of visions of a massive growing collection of skinless organic material, resembling animal/human organs, muscular skull structures, bones, though no recognizable bones, etc., joined together in a fashion that does not occur in nature. All subjects report multiple hearts beating within the biomass, sometimes dotting its surface. After the 5th exposure, all subjects report seeing this, whether or not previous hallucinations remain present or superimposed. Additionally, interviews with multiple exposure subjects, data expunged, anomalous information element. See documents redacted and interview 472-0165B. 472's object class has been upgraded to Euclid. Containment procedures updated. Addendum 78. Area of influence conditional increase. When no subject has been exposed for more than 5 minutes within a period of 2 months, its area of influence begins increasing at a rate of 5 meters per hour. Expansion is temporary, reverting back to normal, or back to the original 18 meters of area of effect once the subject undergoes exposure. Possible physical biomass presence. Further testing with subjects exposed multiple times of 472 data expunged, indicating that the garnet stone classified as 472 may in fact be the only visible portion of a much larger and continually increasing biomass existing in so-called transdimensional metaphor of the tip of the iceberg. Object class pending review. Additional containment measures pending review. Subject biomass alteration. Data expunged. Subsequent testing of subjects exposed to 472 indicates that all subjects experience a 0.01 to 1.35% decrease in biomass with each exposure to 472. Subjects remain unaware of this event. Containment procedures updated. So. Okay, so this seems like it's going to be a bit of a large thing that I probably don't need to read, but if I'll bookmark it in case anybody wants me to come back to it. Just put that under some side SCP things to come back to. Interview log. This is a long interview. It's a long interview. Might be important, might not be important. Who knows? Let's find out. Interviewed, Janice Erickson. Interviewer redacted pending unrelated evaluation, referred to as interviewer throughout log. Forward, interview held after recovery of 472. The subject was part of a household staff at the residence from which 472 was recovered. Subject aware of 472's existence and effects, but had to be informed that it was specifically a garnet stone formerly located in the jewelry collection. Tell us how you first became aware of the stone's properties. The stone? Or the stone, or what the stone does? The stone's properties, what it does. Well, alright. I'd always heard stories from people about how Redacted Manor was haunted, but, you know, I never believed in ghosts or haunting or any of that tripe. Still don't, I guess. I don't really know what to... Never mind. I wouldn't have taken the haunting stuff too seriously anyway. Big old mansion with an old rich white dude who lives alone? Of course people are going to say it's haunted. People think everything's haunted. Subject pauses, request glass of water. Approved. Anyway, I was right. The house was never haunted. It was just that room, or I guess the stone. How did you first enter Redacted's employment? One of my friends told me about the job posting. Mr. Redacted is kind of creepy, okay, but he paid. The job offer was like 3 times what you can get anywhere else. My friend Elizabeth got hired with me. My sister Maddie was supposed to apply too, but she had a friend who was one of Mr. Redacted's old staff before he went and fired everyone the time before, and they wanted her not to go. She tried to talk me out of it, but I'm a single mom, okay? You don't pass that kind of thing up. You said Mr. Redacted previously had fired all members of his household staff. Oh yeah, he did. I guess he did that every few months, just fire most of the new people. He only kept a couple of people for longer than that before me, but the last one of them died a few months after I was hired. Carla, her name was. What do you know about the cause of Carla's death? I don't know. She was old. Maybe it had something to do with the, haunting? I don't know. Maybe she was just old. Anyway, Mr. Redacted hired me right away. I think he liked me. All the rest of the staff were new too, except for Carla. When did you first encounter the stone's effect? I didn't for a while. We were all assigned to clean different parts of the house. Carla wouldn't let us talk to each other in the house. Said Mr. Redacted didn't like it, but you know, some of us talked outside of the house. They mentioned a creepy feeling about the third room atrium. The atrium is where Mr. Redacted kept all of his best things on display. There were hundreds of things in that room, you know? All these jewels and display cases and swords hanging on the walls. The whole room was kind of creepy though. It had these big glazed windows and this big glass roof that Mr. Redacted kept totally covered up by black cloth, and there weren't many lights in there. You know, shadows everywhere. There was just no reason that room had to be so creepy. I think he made it that way because he was kind of a dick, actually. Never actually treated us like real people. I don't know. I'm sorry, what were we talking about? Your first exposure to the stone's effect. Oh, right. It was a month or 2 after I started working. Carla made me go find Marjorie, who'd been assigned to clean the atrium that week. As soon as I got to the room, I heard this sound in my head like thump, 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 thump. I couldn't tell if it was far away or coming from inside my head. I was pretty creeped out by that, but what was I going to do? I told myself I was imagining it and went through the atrium to find Marjorie. I call for her and she doesn't respond. The lights were all low, like I said, and the room was like a maze with all the display cases and old things with curtains over them. Finally, I find her slumped over and back in one of the display cases. She looks at me, but it's like she doesn't really see me. She keeps muttering something about blood on the walls, but I look around and everything seems normal. Creepy, but normal. I still hear the thump-thump noise and it's going faster and I realize it's my own heart. Subject pauses for breath and takes a drink of water. Continue, please. I dragged Marjorie out of there as fast as I could and I felt fine after. I even felt a little silly. Marjorie got better after a while, so she just had a bad day and she was sorry and it wouldn't happen again. She was never a friend of mine, so I didn't ask her any questions about it. Subject pauses. After that, she took a week off from work. When she came back, she didn't want to go back to the atrium, said it was a bad memory. Carla made her go back. Mr. Redacted's orders, apparently. After like 30 minutes, though, we just hear her screaming. Like she was being murdered. She came rushing down the stairs babbling about seeing dead bodies, and they were looking at her, and she could see more blood on the walls, and she wasn't imagining it this time. Carla made her calm down and took her to a room and ordered us out. I spent a while in there. When they came out, Marjorie left without speaking to us. Carla told us she quit and was given severance pay. Later on, one of the other maids told us Marjorie was paid to keep her mouth shut and move away, like... Later on, we heard she killed herself. I don't know if that's true or not. Is it true? Do you know anything about that? I'm sorry, that is classified information. Please continue. Oh. Okay. Well, I don't know who was cleaning the atrium after that. Maybe nobody. I didn't really get on much with the other maids. None of them seemed to like me. A couple were friends with Elizabeth and she kept telling me things about the third floor atrium. Her friend said they'd heard from other people that the atrium was haunted because of everyone Mr. Redacted killed to get all those valuable things on display in there. There was this creepy looking tapestry in there with skulls on it. African, I think. Covered one of the windows. Elizabeth and her friends convinced me this was haunted by the ghosts of some dead slaves or something. Where'd they get that idea? I don't know. It It was just something they'd heard. A month later, Elizabeth finally married her out-of-town fiance and moved away to Redacted. After that, the other staff didn't talk to me. I never got assigned the atriums, but every so often I thought I heard the heartbeat when I got too close to that part of the 3rd floor. You informed our agents that you had prolonged exposure to the stone yourself. How did that come about? Well, first off, I didn't know it was the stone. I thought it was the tapestry or just the room. One day, Mr. Redacted went on one of his rampages. He did that now and then, walked around the house yelling at all the maids and then going into empty rooms and yelling at no one. Then he fired everyone. Everyone except me, Carla, and some ridiculously young girl with big tits who worked in the kitchen. Why do you believe he didn't fire you? I don't know. I wish I knew. Maybe it was because none of the other staff talked to me. Maybe just coincidence. Subject pauses. I ended up taking on most of the other duties. Then Carla assigned me to clean up the atrium. I wasn't happy about it, but I was now getting paid even more because I was doing so much more and I didn't want to get dismissed, so I go into the atrium again. Pauses again, takes another drink. And I heard my heart beating, of course. Again. I saw the tapestry with the skulls on it and I felt like they were watching me. I spent 5 minutes dusting in there and started freaking out. I thought maybe I'd end up like Marjorie and I just ran out of the room. I felt better pretty quick, but I had to go in again, you know? Apparently Carla hadn't been making anyone clean up in there since Marjorie left. So there was dust settled over everything. I didn't want to get fired, and I didn't want to quit, and I didn't want to make the stupid teenager in the kitchen clean haunted room all by herself, so I had to go back. The subject pauses. This happened a few times. I couldn't stand there long without freaking out. Sometimes everything would just turn red, and I'd feel like I was suffocating. I'd hear whispers everywhere. Though I couldn't understand what they were saying. I kept thinking they were the ghosts noticing I was there, telling each other someone was there. I remember Marjorie talking about blood on the walls, and she'd only been there half an hour. I couldn't stop thinking about looking at that goddamn skull tapestry. Eventually I figured, well, Mr. Redacted doesn't even come in his room anymore. He's so old and sick, and really, if the tapestry was haunted by dead slaves, I'd be doing him a favor. It wasn't even that big, and couldn't be worth that much, you know, so one night You aren't going to tell him any of this, are you? That is extremely unlikely. Please continue. Like I said, I had no idea it was the stupid rock making all this happen, so I took the tapestry down. When I took it down, I saw blood on the walls behind it. I really freaked out. I was just going to hide it somewhere, but after seeing the blood, I took the goddamn thing out back and burned it. It really stuck when it burned. When it was gone, I felt better. I stayed out of the atrium for a week just in case. When I went in there again, of course I felt the heartbeat again. I was pissed. I told myself I was imagining things. I felt really guilty about burning the tapestry, like, guiltier than you can imagine. Guiltier than I'd ever been since I was a kid and accidentally killed my pet goldfish. I spaced out in the room and just kept cleaning and crying. So it paused, attempting to compose self. Then I heard faraway screaming and I stopped dusting and saw the blood trickling slowly down the walls. My eyes were all blurry with tears and I tried to wipe them away and my hand came back bloody. I saw bodies? Naked, dead, rotting things, mostly half hidden behind display cases. There was this dead dog and it was almost completely rotted and covered in maggots, but was still trying to move. It looked so horrible, I couldn't even scream. I tried to run, I really did, but I couldn't make my legs move. I kept trying to yell for help, but I couldn't. I was so sure I was going to die. This lasted hours. I think I passed out and woke up a couple of times. After a while, I saw this corpse standing around staring at the walls. Then out of nowhere, he was staring at me. I think that was as close I got to screaming because I really tried then. He never got close to me, but he kept staring. He disappeared and reappeared somewhere else in the room, staring at me again. I saw others too, but they were on the other side of the room doing, I don't know, something horrible probably. And the blood never stopped leaking from the walls. Sometimes I thought I was covered in it, sometimes it disappeared, then it would come back. With new corpses, the thumping and screaming from far away never stopped. Subject pauses. After a long time, the corpses kind of faded and the room stopped seeming so red. It felt like being half woken up. I realized I could move my legs again and I got out of that room as fast as I could. I spent a little over 12 hours in there, alone. Did you return? No, I never did. The next day I went directly to Carla and told her I quit, but she immediately offered me double the high salary I was already being paid. Said Mr. Redacted liked me, liked how quiet I was, and probably wouldn't be hiring anyone new for the next few weeks. I tried to tell her about the room and she clammed up and said something about fumes and that she'd look into it. I went home and helped my daughter for a long time and thought about what kind of jobs I could get somewhere else, but the money, it was just too good. I convinced myself that I must have inhaled something weird, maybe some kind of delayed reaction from burning the tapestry? Or maybe that was the revenge from the tapestry for burning it and everything will be fine now, so I went back. I told Carla I'd take the offer if I didn't have to go in the atrium again. She wasn't really happy about it, but agreed. And you know what? Everything was fine for the next 2.5 months. What happened after 2.5 months? I was taking a nap on a couch on the 2nd floor at the end of my shift. Before going home, I'd gotten comfortable, I guess? I was having anxious dreams and woke up to hear whispering, familiar whispering, just like I'd heard in the atrium the other nights. I couldn't believe what was happening. I thought maybe I was still dreaming, and the walls started bleeding. I couldn't walk again. That's when they appeared. Please continue? Who appeared? Subject appears to be fighting back tears. The corpses from before! Staring at me. He was with my sister. She didn't look hurt, but there was something off about her. I was sure she was dead, and then they started talking to me. What did they say? They said I had made it to the other side, that I only needed to take another step and then I'd know everything. My sister kept repeating something. God looks on the heart. God looks on the heart. Then I felt like I was hallucinating or dreaming, and they kept disappearing, coming back, saying the same things. Then I kept seeing the corpse man from before, staring and then laughing, saying, "You don't mean anything. This doesn't mean anything. You're gonna die, and nothing you are will matter." Then I saw him with Carla, and Carla looked half rotted. He was back to say what he was saying before, how I only needed to take another step and I'd know everything, and trying to promise me something, but I couldn't make out what over the thumping and screaming, which kept getting louder and louder. Carla didn't say anything, just looked at me with a blank face. She started mouthing something as the room got redder and redder. I'm bad at reading lips, but eventually I figured out she was trying to say, "It wants the foundation, don't let them feed it." I don't... Wait, repeat your last sentence? Carla was mouthing, "It wants the foundation, don't let them feed it." Do you know what she meant by that? I have no idea what any of them meant by any of that. Why? Disregard that. Proceed? Okay, well, after that I managed to make myself move and I got the hell out of that house. By the time I got home I felt okay, just really shaken. I called my sister and told her I'd had a really bad dream. I expected her to be dead, but she was perfectly fine, and she's still fine, but Carla... I found out that Carla was dead. They said she passed away in her sleep, in her quarters at Redacted Manor. So, maybe that wasn't really my sister I saw, but it really was Carla? Maybe it killed her, or maybe she died and it took her soul, I guess, and then came after me. I just don't know. Mr. Redacted fell and ended up in the hospital the very next night, so... is that a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe he'll say something to you. He sure hasn't said anything to anyone else, and that's all, really. After that, you guys came along, so you know the rest better than me. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Erickson. Closing statement, subject administered amnestics and released. Cool, because she definitely needed him. And it sounds like the Bloodstone wants to be at the SCP Foundation. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now it's time for Supai, which is Euclid, and I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but it's sonar. Special containment procedures. A 5-kilometer area surrounding 473 is off limits to all personnel. Human testing in this range is prohibited without O5 approval. Above all, loss of human life within this 5-kilometer area must be prevented. A further 20-kilometer distance is to be secured by no less than 2 Foundation combat units at all times. Any unauthorized vessels entering the area are to be sunk and their crew eliminated. Vessels approaching the site but remaining outside of the 20-kilometer kill zone may be boarded and turned away with the use of Class A amnesiacs, which should be amnestics. 473 is a wrecked Spanish galleon typical of those in the used in the early 16th century. It is resting on the ocean floor at blank degrees blank blank north, blank degrees blank blank west. 473 was brought to the attention of the Foundation after the loss of a research vessel operated by Redacted University. A search and rescue team which approached 473 reported audio anomalies like giggling and pleading for help. They reported voices in English, Spanish, and an unrecognized language. Agents embedded in Redacted immediately moved to cancel the search, declaring the crew and vessel lost. Note, though the wreck is designated 473, anomalies present may be due to the cargo within the wreck. Further investigation of this is advised against at this current time. Proximity effects. Phenomena encountered by ships approaching 473 include disembodied voices, which may have knowledge of Foundation personnel and operations, and monophysical disturbances such as unidentified vibrations and impacts on the ship. Electrical disturbances are common, causing primary and emergency lighting to fail. This results in absolute darkness within the ship, which, combined with persuasive voices created by 473, causes extreme disorientation. Personnel in the area are advised to confirm the physical presence of anyone they are in communication with and to ignore any voices that have no discernible source. Periodic cries for help from the water coming from the direction of 473 are to be expected and ignored. Used to say, spontaneous movement of small objects has been observed but has caused little disruption to operations. Now it says, sharp objects and weapons are to be secured in locked containers while within 20 meters of 473. Addendum. Interview 473B. Interviewed J. Blank, Executive Officer of the Foundation vessel which identified and sonographed 473. Interviewer Dr. Halen, the project lead for 473. Forward. The Foundation destroyer, Blank, sailed within 500 meters of 473 before retreating to a distance of 3 kilometers and sinking. Evacuation of the ship was successful, excepting the captain, but 16 hands were lost during the 3 hours the crew awaited rescue. Below is an interview with the highest-ranked surviving officer. The destroyer, Blank, sank minutes after locating 473. Why don't you start by explaining how your ship was damaged? Well, I know what happened, just not how. As we got closer to the site, these voices got louder. Below decks started reporting some hard knocking against the hull. It got rough as we got close. The ship started to vibrate a bit and some of the electronics shorted out. The captain ordered us to turn around, tried to get us out of there. But by the time we'd come about, they'd already started in on the bolts. Could you explain, please? I don't know what gender Dr. Halen is supposed to be. It started to fall apart from the inside. Screws, bolts, nails, and the damn furniture. It all started getting knocked out or unscrewed. Even some of the stuff welded in place. The voices got bad too. And the bastards were always so matter-of-fact and calm. Even while they were rattling the ship to all the hell and taking everything apart. One of them was talking about all the great things he could show me. Another was gibberish I couldn't make out, but she was pissed. We could all hear the voices. There was just no bodies to go with them. Got hard to tell which voices were our crew and which were the damn whatever they were. When was the last time you saw Captain Blank? He gave the order to turn around and told me to handle the things on the bridge while he checked something below deck. I didn't know he was missing until after I gave the order to abandon ship and everyone was in the raft but him. God, if that had only been the end of it. We started rowing away from the wreck and we heard him yelling for help. It was far off towards the shipwreck. He and I served together for blank years. We helped serve in the SCP. I know it was him. I figured he'd gotten knocked overboard or something. And I gave the order for a raft to go get him. Watched them get close to the horizon. Must have been 2 or 3 kilometers from the shipwreck when they just went under. No sound to it. Like a kid's bobber getting pulled under by a fish on the line. I've seen men die, but I know I sent those guys someplace a lot worse. Wasn't long after that Daniel started whispering to me about what a bastard I was. How I sent them all to die for nothing. He said the only way to make it right was to jump out on the raft and join him. Maybe I would have too, if not for the other guys on my raft. We spent hours rowing, with our friends screaming for help behind us. Even when they were far behind us, they didn't stop whispering in our ears. My friend Blank told me it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. He never was religious, but he said that he found God. He only wanted me to see what God had shown him. We don't leave our people behind, we don't. Closing statement. Professor Blank and associates present on the research vessel Blank are confirmed to have been acquired by 473. Recommend extreme measures be taken to prevent personnel and civilians from expiring in close proximity to 473. Currently advise maintaining containment at present location due to the inherent danger of recovery and the threat of exponential strengthening through acquisition of D-class subjects at any given site. Note, interview subject J. Blank's corpse was found in his quarters on April 24th blank. Suicide is suspected. A note nearby said I shouldn't have left them. Testing of 473 as a possible cognito hazard is recommended. Addendum 2. Continuing research has found that one Professor Blank led the doomed university expedition to the site of 473. Though his research notes appear to have been lost with him, his last outgoing email includes some context of his expedition. Sent. Samantha, you're right. The research papers are wordy and I could never put my opinion in them anyway. You already know that he led a small army south to Ecuador and eventually killed the high priest in charge of appeasing Supai, but it seems that he also captured 2 daughters and arranged to have them sent back to Spain as examples of the indigenous population. Sick bastard, one of them as trophies, or worse. Anyway, the ship's manifest listed a number of cultural artifacts in the girl's personal belongings. On that list was an item that I think represented the god himself, and that is the real prize. The manifest lists all manner of gold and artifacts that the university would love to have, even if we don't hit the jackpot on this one. Still, I can't help but get excited about the prospect of bringing back the Inca's unholy grail. All the best! P.S. Let's keep this quiet to be a disaster if someone beat us there. Okay, so, Supai, then, is, it sounds like, a sunken ship that was attempting to make slaves of 2 women who were the daughters of a chief of the Incas, and they angered the crap out of a god. And the ship is just continuing to be angered by that, and just killing people. That's how it sounds anyway. Now it's time for the Broken Mason, which is Euclid. Instances of 474 are to be contained in high-capacity vaults, located in Site 77's Euclid wing. Each instance is to be suspended on a block of ice which encompasses the instance's mass. If an instance of 474 is located outside of containment, all cavities will be temporarily filled with cotton until it can be fully contained. Instances of 1 are to be suspended in ice and held in standard containment chambers. Description: 471 is a phenomenon which affects the walls of artificial structures, characterized by the appearance of a hole of varying size and shape. Currently, 34 instances of 474 have been contained by the Foundation. Structures affected by 474 will generate humanoid figures, which are composed out of the same materials the structure 474 is affecting. Yeah. These figures are classified as instances of 474-1. 1 will slowly fill up whatever space the 474 instance has caused, and will become animate after taking up all available space in the area. During this growth period, 1 will resemble the prenatal development cycle, initially appearing as an infant before growing into an adult form. When animate, instances of 1 will seek out the nearest damaged artificial structure. Once they do so, they will perform various rituals on or around the damaged structure. Examples of these rituals include attempting to gently rub mortar or other sealants into cracks or small damaged portions of the structure, laying new bricks if the structure is composed as such, spending significant amount of times lying motionlessly near the structure or within the damage if the damage is prominent, stomping around the structure while scraping at various portions of its body in a rhythmic manner, scratching various messages into the undamaged portions of the structure, see attached document. After a period of time ranging between 3 to 6 hours, the one instance will physically contact the damaged area and disintegrate. Following this, the structure will remain inert for approximately 9 months, after which it will begin producing instances of 1 and is to be classified as an instance of 474. Addendum: documentation of a 1 message found outside a small coffee shop. It was carved into a wall behind the building over a period of 4 hours, after which the Foundation agents moved in to contain it. We were always built for each other. Like bricks on mortar, we rise together. I sit in your cubby and dream of tomorrow. We meld together. I am born to you as new. We meld our stone together. Fill in the cracks, be whole with me, and broken no more. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. And last for this episode and this week, Pope Soap. It's safe. SCP-475 is to be kept in a watertight containment locker at Storage Unit 45C of Site 36. Is that about the site, or is that something else? Okay, what? Okay, so site leads to SCP-89, and 36 leads to SCP-3615. Why? Okay. And okay. Was the other one Keter too? No, that's Euclid, and the other thing is Keter, and this is called Pope Soap. Right. All testing with para-religions requires permission from the site director. To prevent religious groups of interest from learning of the object's existence, knowledge of 475 is to follow Level 3 Info Security Protocol. SCP-475 is an ornate sculpture of soap depicting an unidentified pope. Inscribed at the base of the statue is the phrase, "Cleanliness is next to godliness." Analysis reveals that the object to be composed of long-chain saturated fatty acids totaling 89.7% of its mass, with the remaining 10.3% corresponding to blankety blank, attached as the hydrophilic head. It is believed that the blankety blank gives SCP-475 its unique properties, but all attempts to recreate this compound have failed. When 475 comes into contact with water and is applied to the skin, all accumulated foreign contaminants are removed. Tested materials include dead skin cells, perspiration, bodily parasites, mold, dirt, and detergents. Post-test examinations have shown that 100% of foreign contaminants are removed, a statistical anomaly. This process only occurs when used on human skin. All attempts so far to use 475 on non-humans have failed to produce its anomalous effects. Testing on anomalous animals such as 1845 or 2050 is pending approval. Unlike typical soaps, the usage of 475 does not damage it. SCP-475's secondary anomalous effects manifest when it is used on a professing member of an organized religion. Subjects universally report greater mental clarity, show greater adherence to church doctrine, and rate at least 15 that, which is SCP-1844, Sentiakiva, on the Brandon Spencer piety scale. These effects increase in intensity the longer the subject uses the object, culminating in local reality changes signified by all bodies of water within a 5-meter radius turning into an equivalent liquid that is considered holy in the subject's religion. Examples of these changes can be found in Test Log 475. Addendum: 475 came under Foundation containment when insubordinate elements of the Horizon Initiative relinquished control of it. These elements cited a desire to maintain unity and prevent infighting as to why the object could not be kept. 475 was allegedly recovered from the residence of the Catholic Cardinal blank blank, who was found deceased from injuries consistent with upside-down crucifixion. The following materials were also provided. Access Memoirs of blank. How long is this? Credentials verified. And Occult Forces goes to the GOC help page, the Global Occult Coalition, I think. I write this document to preserve the personal revelation invested in me. Over these past years, I have grappled with my faith. Having committed it to paper, the idea seems absurd. I, the leader of the faith, I, whose vote has determined the successor of Peter, I, who has undeniable proof of God's glory, the initiative, for all its missteps and blasphemy, has provided undeniable proof of God's glory. Proof that has to be withheld from the world due to the inscrutable agreements with occult forces who do not have salvation in mind. Despite this undeniable proof, I wrestled with the fears that God is not almighty. How can a God so glorious and almighty stand by as false idols exert their forces over man? By the grace of God, my fears have been quelled. The night before, I beheld the apparition of Mary. To try and capture the glory of it would be futile, but it is an experience too magnificent to withhold. We were out at sea. Below the waves I could see the church penitent, awaiting purification. Further below that, deep beneath, there was creation. All around us were the gilded statues of saints, each linked to a church far below us. The Virgin Mother herself was resplendent, situated atop a pedestal, the pedestal carried by a many-winged creature of fire. In her right arm she held the Savior, and her left a block of marble. She confided in me, told me of my purpose. Encased in the marble were the keys to heaven, the church's magisterium itself, the authority to commune with saints. I was to take it, free the keys and cleanse the church militant. Then all will be made clear. When I woke up, there was a block of soap on my nightstand. Queer, but I do not question the machinations of God. Every day since that night has been hazy. I've worked with a fervor to accomplish this mission. Even to this moment I have my doubts, but I am human. It is in my nature to doubt. If there is one thing I can be certain of, it is that I am a cog in God's plan. And then, it was approved for extensive testing with para-religions. Roman Catholicism. 3 minutes. The water transmuted to a mixture of olive oil and balsam, consistent with the chrism oil employed in various Catholic rituals. Stigmata manifested in subject's hands. Subject was heard reciting that, as anomalous effects took place, the stigmata healed over the course of the next 3 days. And what's a stigmata? A mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. In Christian tradition, okay. Roman Catholicism. Sedevacus? However, 5 minutes, water transmitted. Did that again. Post-test interview indicated the subject accepted the current pope as rightful Pontifex Maximus. Pentecostal, 11 minutes, water transmuted into pasteurized grape juice. Subject began exhibiting that. The phenomenon of apparently speaking an unknown language, especially in religious worship, is practiced especially by Pentecostal and charismatic Christians. So, they spoke in tongues. They displayed xenoglossy in the post-test interview. They made the following requests: access to the sick bay, access to any demonic entity's house on site, and a pet snake. Request denied. What does this mean? The ability to speak a language without having learned it. This sounds like a real neat trick if you can manage it. However, a typical place to find is the Journal of That. Okay then. Hasidic Judaism, 60 minutes. The test was aborted after failure to produce anomalous results. Subject vehemently denied any change in behavior or mindset. Notes: counters measured a blank % increase in ambient Hume levels. Further testing warranted. The Jejuric Demotix proposal? Oh, it's one of the SCP-01s. I can only assume I already read this since I went through like the whole of SCP-1. Broken Church, 13 minutes. Water transmuted into machine oil began manifesting symptoms of 217 infection. Subject was placed under quarantine. Within 48 hours, the infection present in its immune system had been rendered inert. They were transferred to Site 234 for further study. The Cogwork Orthodox. Machine oil proceeded to transform into metallic ovoid object bearing numerous markings on the surface. Resultant object pending classification as an instance of 1564. Maxwellism. The expunged date. Okay, implanting God. That's a signal. Blah blah. So water transmuted into a thermal adhesive. The testing terminated as the subject began complaining about a splitting headache. Analysis indicates that part of the subject's brain had been replaced with cybernetics inconsistent with standard Maxwellist augments. Subject claims to have experienced a continuation of the signal, a hallucinatory vision all Maxwellists experience after ongoing implementation of their first augments. In this vision, so, apparently that's a story, and SCP-2217 happened. Neo-Sarkicism. Water transmuted into blood began morphing into an instance of SK biotype-like. As they suspended and subject sedated, upon resumption, they calcified into a roughly that ellipsoidal object and began emitting thermal radiation in the microwave range. They're currently at Site 10, which I think is also another SCP-01. Church of the Broken God. Okay, so I'm not going to read that right now. I'm just going to bookmark the Church of the Broken God. And I'll come back to that someday. I don't know when yet, but it'll happen. Children of the Scarlet King. Water became blood. They underwent a series of transformations, turning into a progressively more advanced in the Deivite caste system variants of the DV biotype. Transformations culminated with the subject becoming a colossal squid and expiring. Genetic testing indicates that the blood is from the common sperm whale. Okay then. Fifthism. 25 minutes. Became 100 specimens of that. They melted into candle wax. The suspected connections to SCP-1523. What is this? Starfish? Seems to be a starfish. Church of the Second High Toth. 30 minutes. Became blood. Forehead developed pigmentation in the shape of a 7-pointed star. Displays previous unknown knowledge of Hytothian rituals and the language of Orthothon. Analysis indicates that the blood is from the common 7-armed octopus. Children of the Torch. Water transmuted into aqueous flame, similar to that created by 2814. Subject then melted into a waxy substance. Is that another instance of SCP-01? Yep. Yet remained motile and cognizant. Subject expired after 24 hours, remains stored in Site 23. Australian Church of Australia, 1 minute, results data expunged. Further testing with the Australian Church of Australia requires unanimous approval from the O5 Council. Research into preventing an AU class end-of-the-world scenarios deemed a Class X1 priority. I feel like this is a fake thing that was just done so that they can make fun of how deadly Australia is, but I'm going to Google it anyway just in case that's an actual thing. It is indeed not real. It is sheerly it surely seems to be a SCP thing. So, that about does it for the Pope Soap. Which is still a funny name to say, even if it does terrible things, it's still a funny name to say. Well, it doesn't do terrible things, it makes you, like, completely, utterly clean if you're a normal person and use it if you're not religious. I wonder what it does to atheists. In any case, this has been Anachi Sasuke. This is episode 105 of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the next episode, we're going to start with the map to nowhere, and we're going to go up through Recurring Nightmare Field. They should probably use those spiders with the dream catchers on that. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later!